Meckler, the Chargers made it to 500 at 4-4. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. And by the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com. or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, Aaliyah Bilal is a finalist for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction, and that is a really, really big deal for a debut book. Aaliyah Bilal's short stories follow Black American Muslims who were members of the Nation of Islam around the 1970s. And get this, she didn't have an agent or any publishing connections when she sent her work to Simon & Schuster after an open call for submissions. And here she is now, a finalist for the 2023 National Book Award for Fiction. That's high cotton. Her book is called Temple Folk, and we'll talk about it with Aaliyah Bilal in hour two. In our third hour,
let your will be done on earth, 'cause it's already done in heaven. Let your kingdom come on earth, 'cause you already run the heavens. Let your glory fill the earth, 'cause it already floods the heavens. Let your freedom ring on earth, 'cause it's already rung in heaven. Let the choir sing on earth. Let your will be done on earth in the same way it is in heaven.
her name is Victory, and she hails from Detroit. Many say her music is a fusion between soul music and folk music in the style of Nina Simone and, say, Tracy Chapman. She was personally signed by Jay-Z to Roc Nation, and she is now a Grammy Award-winning artist, and she'll join us in hour 3 to share her musical journey, vision, and unique sound. Look forward to that dialogue with Victory once we get to hour 3 today. But we commence today's show talking politics with the editor of The Nation magazine, Dede Guttenplan. Dede, good to have you back. How are you today?
I'm all right. Great to be back talking to you, Tavis.
It's good to have you back, man. A lot to talk about. Glad we have the hour. I was walking in the studio moments ago asking myself, where am I going to start with Dede? Because there's just so much stuff to cover in this first hour. I think just a roll of the dice, I'm going to start with this. There were some memorable moments, or put another way, some not so memorable moments from a former president who was on trial yesterday in New York. It was absolutely chaotic. Yesterday, while we were on the air, we made mention of the fact that the judge, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but not really, told Mr. Trump's lawyers, get your client together. I'm going to take a 15-minute recess, get your client out of here, get his mind right, get his attitude adjusted, and we're going to try to continue this. But you got to get control of your client. That he did say, get control of your client. And they paused for 15 minutes to get Trump to calm down. Trump comes back in and continues to be Donald Trump. It was just, as I said, chaotic yesterday. Your read of what happened in that courtroom yesterday.
Sure. Well, first of all, get control of your client. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
We have a pretty funny piece on our website today by Chris Lehman. There's no stopping Donald Trump's courtroom soliloquy. I mean, that's,
yeah.
For him, it's just another stage, another platform. The fact that his company, the Trump organization, has already been found guilty. I mean, it's worth bearing that in mind. This is a civil fraud trial. They've already been found guilty of fraud as a corporation, and so the hearings before the judge are about what degree of penalty he's going to impose on the company.
Yeah.
And so, I suspect that Trump's strategy is, I've already lost round one of this one, so I'm just hoping for the appeal. On the other hand, he's Trump, so he's also always running for something, and he figures if I have a stage, I'm going to use it, and he's been using it. But the judge has been fairly forbearing. The judge in a civil trial has the same access to contempt citations as a judge in a criminal trial. Judge Engeron has so far not used them very heavy-handedly, but I think Trump is a master at pushing the envelope. So that's what happened as far as I could see yesterday, is that we saw a lot more envelope pushing. You
used the word forbearing a moment ago. It's a great word, Dede, and that's why you're a great writer and great editor. I want to go a little farther than that, though. As I watched this yesterday, my mind was processing this, as it always does, from the standpoint of what it means to be a person of color in this country. I am a person of color, obviously, and so I see the world oftentimes through the lens of how this situation, this scenario might be different were it a person of color. I cannot imagine that any black man in this country or any person of color, frankly, there you go, any poor person, any indigent person could step into a courtroom and humiliate the judge the way that Trump did yesterday, demonize the prosecution from the stand, and get away with that. So you use the word forbearing, but to me it's another example of the ways in which even our system of justice, so-called, our system of jurisprudence, bends over backwards to accommodate white males who are, again, humiliating the judge in real time for everybody to see, dogging out the prosecution, and they get away with it. We'll talk about that when we come forward. Just getting started in this first hour. Dede Guttenplan of The Nation magazine. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Unapologetically progressive. Unapologetically black. You're tapped into Tavis Smiley.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Coming 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin', Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Thinking about hosting a podcast and don't know where to start? Morris Media Studios has you covered. We're a professional podcast and voiceover studio located in Leimert Park. We specialize in recording and live streaming audio and video podcasts. Let us help you set up, record, and distribute your podcast. Hosting a podcast is a great way to bring awareness to your business, product, or good cause. For more info, visit morrismediastudios.com or give us a call at 323-815-4204.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Tavis Smiley and the Nation's D.D. Gutton Plan, where he, of course, is the editor. And delighted to have him back on this program in this first hour as we talk politics, and there's a lot to get to. So, D.D., it might impress you to know that during that break, I went to my phone to look up the definition of forbearing. And forbearing means to be patient and restrained. So you are right. He was, in fact, patient and restrained. The word that I had in my head when I raised that issue was not forbearing, but accommodating. And accommodating means willing to fit in with someone's wishes or needs. And so I think we're both right. The judge was patient and restrained, but also willing to let Donald Trump just have his wishes and needs addressed by the court.
Well, this is where, with respect, I think you and I might part company a little bit. Of course, this is radio, so your listeners can't see exactly how pale I am, but I can't claim the experience of being a black person in the criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. But I can say that in this trial, there's no jury. There's just the judge.
Right.
So the word I would take issue with is humiliate.
Mm-hmm.
Trump was clearly aiming things at the judge and being hostile in a certain way, but he was also, I guess the thing is, the judge gets the last laugh here. You know, he's the person who's going to decide. He's what George W. Bush called the decider.
Mm-hmm.
So if Trump pokes at him, he'll pay for it later. Now, Trump may figure in the end, I'm going to get out of this because the Supreme Court, I picked these judges, they're going to go my way, or because, I'm going to beat Biden in 2024 and pardon myself in this case, or remove this judge, or whatever. I mean, it's certainly true that Trump is playing for very high stakes here, but it's also true that that we're talking about the dissolution of his business empire.
Nope.
And if that happens, if the judge imposes those conditions, which he has the right to do in this case, then Donald Trump will just be another guy on the television with opinions. You know, he's basically like no better than Tucker Carlson or any other right-wing blowhard.
Yeah.
And so it's a very high-stakes trial.
It is, and I don't know, as I listened to you, I was waiting for the part where we split company. I'm not sure we actually split company because to me, and I don't want to get I don't want to get into a war of words here. I mean,
I like to be on the same side as you.
as I do you. But I don't want to waste time parsing words here, but I do believe that words matter. You're a writer, I'm a writer, words matter. So now you use the word hostile. To my mind, when you are hostile toward one, to any person, whether they have authority or not, they could be above you or beneath you. But when you're hostile to somebody in public, in full view of others to see, on television no less, when you're hostile toward them and they have the authority in that space, that's humiliating. So again, I won't press it, but I take your point. I think we both agree that this judge bent over backwards yesterday. In this case, and Donald Trump was just off the rails. There's no debate about that. I'll move forward. In the end, we will see what happens, and you've already made the point very clear. There's no jury here, and in part, that's because of a mistake his legal team made. They had the option for that, and they screwed that up. And so now, rather than being judged by a jury, he has to be judged by this judge. And I think we have a pretty good idea of how that's going to end up, given what the judge has already said about all the fraud he sees in these documents. So this is not going to end well for Donald Trump. We'll set that aside. To your point, it's a civil trial, so there's no jail associated with this. But that's Donald Trump in the courtroom yesterday. Let me talk now about Donald Trump outside the courtroom and this poll that everybody was discussing yesterday. We discussed it on this program ad infinitum, ad nauseum yesterday with our brilliant contributor, Connie Rice. So I don't want to go back into all the details of what the poll found. For those who didn't hear yesterday's show and have not seen the news, it was everywhere yesterday. Donald Trump leads Joe Biden in 5 or 6 major battleground states, these key swing states. Donald Trump leads Joe Biden in all of these states, and specifically where black folk are concerned, Donald Trump is polling at 22% of black voters in these swing states. The only thing that this poll points out that is of some solace, perhaps, Dee, to those who are Biden supporters, is that the poll also indicates that if, in fact, Donald Trump is convicted anywhere in this process of these cases, if he's convicted, then the numbers start to swing a bit in Joe Biden's favor. I asked this question of Connie yesterday. If you're a prosecutor in any one of these cases and you don't want this guy to be reelected, I think you got to put your foot on the accelerator. But your take on the numbers that suggest if in fact he's convicted somewhere along the way, then the numbers start to swing a bit back toward Joe Biden's direction.
Well, I think the main point to make about these polls, and I would say that rather than being Joe Biden's supporters, the nation are anti-Trump.
Sure.
Our line is more against the dangers that Trump poses to our democracy than any particular water carrying for the current president.
Sure.
But, having said that, I think it's an early poll, and people are, speaking personally, I am not thrilled by the choices on offer. Mm-hmm. So I think if they offered all of us a kind of none of the above or somebody else, mm-hmm. And that somebody else was running as a Democrat. I mean, we've editorialized before. We wish that that Cornel West was running as a Democrat.
Sure.
Because we wish there was another choice on the Democratic line. I think that's true. I also think that particularly younger voters and voters of color are disgusted with Biden's close embrace of Benjamin Netanyahu and what the Israeli government is doing in Gaza. I think that has certainly hurt him recently. But I think also the age thing is real, and it's not going to go away, and it's not going to get better. And frankly, the Democratic National Committee has, I have to use a careful word here because we're on the radio, screwed itself by shutting down any opportunity for anybody to put forth genuine, plausible alternatives or to have a debate within the Democratic Party over whether this 80-year-old man is really the best torchbearer in 2024.
Mm-hmm. Cornel West, you mentioned a moment ago, as you probably know, a dear friend of mine. We've traveled together for 30 years and written books together, and a dear brother. And has been on this program, and we'll be back here in a few days to talk about the state of his campaign now, particularly on this side of this poll. There are a couple of ways, as I mentioned, I think yesterday, to sort of read these independent candidates. There's a big piece today. I just read it this morning. A big piece today in the New York Times about Bobby Kennedy's campaign.
Right.
And Cornel West, of course, is mentioned in that, and there are some major pieces coming out about him. How do I know? Because I've been interviewed for a few of them, so I know there are other pieces coming about Cornel West. But here's my question. Again, there are a couple ways to read this. One way to read this is why Cornel West and Bobby Kennedy have no business running as independents. No business doing so. Because the frame that we are in now has this race so tight and so close that either one of them could swing this election to Donald Trump, goes the argument. The other way to read it is this is why you need Bobby Kennedy and Cornel West running, because all the polls indicate that people are not happy with either one of these guys. To your point, nobody wants to see a sequel of this, so why should they not be given other alternatives? So again, there are at least two different ways to read these independent candidacies. How does D.D. Guttenplan read them?
Well, I read them in a third way, I'm afraid, which is I certainly think they have every right to run. I think the people who try and shut this down and say, Cornel West has no business running, he's only helping Donald Trump, or people who say that about Robert Kennedy Jr., I don't agree with that. I think that's anti-democratic, frankly. I think people have to take any form they can find to raise questions. And I think they're entitled to do that. I do think that if it comes down to Trump and Biden, in the summer, those arguments might have more purchase then because, realistically, we live in a two-party system. I don't like it. I wish we had more choices. But if it's going to come down to Biden or Trump on the ballot, then you have a different argument. But right now, no, as I said, I only wish they were both running as Democrats. I wish that people who are committed to not seeing Donald Trump get reelected had a chance to say, we don't want Donald Trump, but we want somebody else other than Joe Biden. And whether it's, Cornel West or Robert Kennedy Jr., or whether either or both of those candidates take enough votes from Biden in a primary to make the Democratic Party realize they've got a real problem on their hands and they need to open it up, that would be fine with me. But that isn't going to happen as long as neither of them are running on the Democratic line.
But you understand.
That's my third way.
No, I love a third way. I mean, that's why I always leave the studio smarter than I came in. So I'm always open to a third way, another way, a better way. So I'm not bothered by that at all. But very quickly here, before I move on, you do understand, though, that the reason why Cornel West and Bobby Kennedy was, and he stepped out of the Democratic frame, and Cornel West never went inside to run as a Democrat. The reason for that is because they saw what happened to Bernie Sanders. They know that if you try to run in a Democratic primary, the party is going to crush you. It's going to crush you. And now, they're running against an incumbent.
Well, look what happened to Bernie Sanders. He ran, he got crushed. The game was rigged, as Bernie said, and as all of us who supported him believed. And yet, he came pretty close. And also, crush you, yes, they kept him from winning. And I think that's a mistake. I think Sanders could have beaten Trump, just to go on the record.
Right.
But I also think that, this is the United States. He's not in a gulag. He's, in fact, in the Senate. He's got important, committees that he's chair of. And he's got a huge public platform because precisely of how many votes he got in the Democratic primaries. So,
but he ain't president, Dee. He ain't president.
No, he ain't president.
They crushed him.
People care what he says.
Yeah.
It's harder to dismiss him than it is to cut out Cornel West or Robert Kennedy Jr. And I think it's self-marginalization, and that's what I'm arguing against.
I take your point. Not sure we agree on that one, so maybe we do part company on that one. But I take your point. You mentioned Israel. You mentioned Israel and Hamas. Of course, you can't talk these days without talking about it. So let me spend a few minutes watching my clock here on this issue. And the simple question for me today, because the story is developing literally by the hour, by the minute. And the story now is that Israel has basically split Gaza in half, and they have now made comments. Bibi has specifically said that they are going to provide security, as he put it, essentially run Gaza indefinitely. And they, of course, refused Antony Blinken's entreaty, our Secretary of State, to stop the bombing here and there, to get hostages out and humanitarian aid in. How do you read those two things?
Well, I think, first of all, that talk about humiliation. Blinken was on a humiliation tour. Nobody wanted to listen to what he had to say, and that's fair enough, except that you would think that given that we're proposing to give Israel $13 billion, they might give our Secretary of State the time of day.
Yeah.
I do think that the one part where I would slightly correct the way you described it is the humanitarian pause, such as it was, or such as the Biden administration was pushing for, was to get supplies in, but I don't think anybody realistically expected that many hostages would come out. I think that's, in a sense, that's the little bit of ground where the Israelis part company with the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But, The Nation magazine, in an editorial I wrote, said last week that ceasefire is just the beginning. So we are firmly behind a ceasefire. And, the question is, why is that? Why do we think a ceasefire is essential? And the short answer is because Israel has proven that it can kill more Palestinians faster than Palestinians can kill Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that leave you? That leaves you with two sets of grieving parents, two sets of people weeping for their slaughtered children, two sets of people who are no closer to peace than they were on October 6th, and an increasingly mounting body count. And we do not believe that adding to that body count is going to get any closer to the resolution of this problem. The Israelis say they need to eliminate Hamas. And first of all, if the Israelis could have eliminated Hamas, they've had 30 years to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, even if there was some magic smart weapon that would, kill every Hamas fighter with the push of a button, all that would mean is that a new generation and a new organization with the same goals would spring up with a different name. So, our view is stop the slaughter, get to the negotiations, and this is where the U.S. could actually play a useful role, really push both sides to make meaningful moves in the direction of actually sharing the land and actually coming to a just peace. Because without a just peace, all you're going to get is ceasefires. And if there's no justice, then you cease fire and then it builds up and it explodes again. So, a just resolution of this crisis, which includes, full civil rights for Palestinians, which includes Israelis being able to sleep at night in their own beds without thinking they're going to wake up with a Hamas knife at their throats or worse, that is essential. That is where this has to go. But to get there, adding to the body count is not helping.
In terms of numbers, we know that there are just over 1,400 Israelis who have been killed, slaughtered in this process. This iteration of war between Israel and Palestine, or Israel and Hamas specifically. Over 1,400 Israelis dead, over 10,000 Palestinians dead, and that is the point that Didi makes now. These Palestinians have no capacity to kill as many Israelis as fast as Israelis can kill Palestinians, so the body count either way goes up. But 1,400 versus 10,000, all life is precious, all life has value, but those numbers are really, really skewed, and they're going to get more skewed as this process continues. And so I saw Didi's piece, and I recommend it. It's called A Ceasefire in Gaza is just the first step. We must end the slaughter, and then comes the hard part. What he was saying just moments ago is the hard part, but it's a piece I highly recommend you read in The Nation magazine. Much more to cover, much more to talk about in this hour in terms of trending politics when we come forward with the Didi Gutton Plan on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Prosecutors have until next month to hand over DNA evidence to the judge in the Idaho student murder case. The judge set the deadline so he can determine what evidence is admissible. Brian Koberger is accused in the fatal stabbings of University of Idaho students last November. In Alabama, after spending a week in jail, a federal judge in Birmingham released State Representative John Rogers on bond for a second time Monday. The African-American representative was ordered to be held at the Cullman County Jail after prosecutors reported he had tried to call a witness in his corruption case twice. That's a violation of the conditions of his bail. As part of the conditions of his second release, Rogers was ordered not to have any contact with witnesses or co-defendants. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Southern California Edison. Make plans to stay safe in an emergency or a public safety power shutoff. Have a shared plan for you and your loved ones. Start today at sce.com/be prepared.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very busy night for LA's basketball teams. Let's start with the kids. USC beat Kansas State by 13 to win their season opener. 18 points and 6 assists for freshman sensation Isaiah Collier, the nation's #1 recruit in the class of 2023. UCLA rose to a 31-point win over St. Francis of Pennsylvania. USC's women's team won their season opener. They beat Ohio State by 9, 32 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists for freshman phenom Juju Watkins. The Lakers fell to 3-4 after a 1-point loss at Miami. The Clippers lost by 14 to the Knicks in New York. Nice game for James Harden in his debut. 17 points, 6 assists in 31 minutes. Monday Night Football, the Chargers beat the Jets in New York by 21. 2 touchdowns for Austin Eckler. The Chargers made it to 500 at 4-4. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Halloween is over, but hiring is still scary. Indeed's end-to-end solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Sponsor a job and instantly receive a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Happy holidays, foodies. Les Affairs is your local Black-owned event planning and catering service you can trust to provide a Thanksgiving free of the holiday scaries. Find us at LesAffairsEvents.com. No grocery shopping in this haunting economy, laboring over a burning stove or battling the boogeyman, the dishes. Spooky season's over. Let Les Affairs cater your feast. Order from our selection of meats and sides delivered Thanksgiving Eve. Next day, heat, eat, and enjoy. Learn more at LesAffairsEvents.com or Instagram at LesAffairsEvents, LESAFFAIRESEVENTS. Bon appetit!
Do you have both Medi-Cal and Medicare?
If so, the new LA Care plan called Medicare Plus can help you get the most out of your health plan for $0.
LA Care provides personalized service to Angelinos like us.
Plus, it gives us access to doctors and specialists across Los Angeles County.
For zero cost, we get access to full benefits.
From vision coverage,
in-home support services,
to prescription drug coverage,
and a quarterly over-the-counter allowance,
plus personal equipment,
meal programs,
a gym membership,
and so much more.
For more than 25 years,
LA Care has provided Angelinos with access to quality health care at an affordable cost.
For our families,
our seniors,
our community,
it's a plus.
It's a plus
for all of us.
November is National Runaway Prevention and Homeless Youth Awareness Month, and the Sanctuary of Hope is shining a light on the situations that cause youth to run away or face a housing crisis. In LA County, nearly 3,000 youth are homeless on the streets each night. All month long, the Sanctuary of Hope will lead activities throughout LA County to inform and mobilize calls for action, and you can help. For more info, go to www.thesoh.org. That's www.thesoh.org.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
And Tavis Smiley is in dialogue right now with Dee Guttenplan, editor for The Nation magazine. In case you've just tuned in, we've been talking politics. We started, of course, talking about Donald Trump in the courtroom yesterday and all his antics and the chaos that erupted in that courtroom yesterday. We have talked a bit about this poll yesterday that you've probably seen, that Donald Trump is leading Joe Biden in these 5 or 6 key battleground states, these swing states, and that's not good. And he's polling at about 22%, Trump is, of black voters, which is scary. And we spent some time talking about Israel and Hamas and that drama that continues unabated in the Middle East. Now I want to cover a few more issues before I lose Dee at the top of the hour. Today's election day in parts around the country, and we'll talk more expressly about this tomorrow. It's always weird talking about election day on election day. You need some results to really drill down on it. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, Dee, but it is election day. Are there any things in particular that you and the nation are keeping your eyes on today?
Oh yeah, we are keeping an eye. Well, we're keeping our eyes on Ohio and Virginia, where abortion measures are on the ballot, to see, whether that's still something that pulls a lot of voters into the Democratic column, as it did even in Kansas, and and in other words, even in red states, this has been a winning issue for Democrats. So we are very interested to see how those referendums turn out. We are watching in Kentucky, where there's some interesting races, and I suspect that in some ways the most interesting race we're watching is in Mississippi, or at least the least expected, where a Democratic candidate who rejoices in the name of Brandon Presley, and it is a cousin of Elvis Presley, is now within 1 percentage point of Tate Reeves, one of the most corrupt governors in the United States. And also, Tate Reeves is the person, if you live in Mississippi and you can't pay your medical bills, Tate Reeves is the person to blame, because he's the person who refused to extend Medicaid to the state of Mississippi, perhaps on the theory that it might have benefited a lot of people who were not white. I'm just saying that's a suspicion, but it's a suspicion that's certainly widely held in Mississippi, that the reason for not extending Medicaid benefits to Mississippi is essentially racism.
Yeah.
Anyway, the fact that a Democrat can even challenge for the governor of Mississippi is pretty astonishing. The fact that he's close is interesting. If he wins, it will be a big upset. And so we're watching that with bated breath. Also, I suspect my friends in Jackson, who have been suffering from the state's terrible treatment of not only Mayor Chokwe Antar Lumumba, but also the city's attempts to take control of its own water supply, which the state has been criminally delinquent in sorting out, and showed no real interest in resolving the problem. Well, again, if Tate Reeves is out, that will be a big plus for the people of Jackson. So, that's a campaign that I'm personally paying a lot of attention to.
This governor is not only the governor who refused, as you mentioned, the Medicaid payments, but he's also the same governor whose administration got caught up in that welfare scandal. For those who remember that story of this welfare money being fraudulently spent, and Brett Favre, the former NFL quarterback, his connection to that drama. This is the same governor's administration caught up in that. So you heard Dee Dee say the most corrupt governor in the nation. I'm sure there are others, but there's a reason why this guy at the top of the list. Yeah, he's king of the hill, and we will see if Elvis Presley's cousin, Brandon Presley, can take him out in this election tonight in my birth state of Mississippi. So a lot to watch. Again, tomorrow you can rest assured in the first hour of tomorrow's program we will be covering some of the results and updating you on the issues that Dee Dee raises today that the nation and many of us in the nation are keeping our eyes on. That said, talking about elections, let me move to some fascinating data here that I was studying last night and again this morning. And this is a chart, Dee Dee, that I found really interesting. You may have seen this chart. It's starting to make its way around. But it's a chart about Kamala Harris. We were talking earlier about the race between Biden and Trump. Nobody wants to see this sequel. But part of, and it's the elephant in the room, and some people talk about it. Many people are scared to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it right now. It's not just Trump and Biden, but Kamala Harris is factoring into this in a lot of ways. And there are a lot of people who are afraid that if Joe Biden, God forbid, dies in office, let's say he gets reelected and dies, then Kamala Harris becomes the president. And there are a lot of people, again, it's one of those things people talk about sort of quietly, but it's out there. And everybody's concerned about Kamala Harris becoming president, and the polling suggests that nobody except Kamala and her husband actually want that to happen. And so here are some numbers that you need to be aware of. So they've done a poll about her net favorability versus past vice presidents. Up against Mike Pence, she's a negative 11 in terms of favorability for past vice presidents. This is Mike Pence, and she's at a negative 11. Up against Joe Biden when he was vice president, she's a negative 12.7. Up against Dick Cheney, remember him, Darth Vader? She's a negative 31. 31. And up against Al Gore, the guy who created the internet, remember that? She's a negative 44.9. So whether it's Al Gore, Dick Cheney, Joe Biden, or Mike Pence, she's running really high negatives against every recent former vice president. And that is a fear that many people have, not just about his age, but if something happens to him, Kamala Harris becomes vice president, and that's why they want something else. The question is whether or not this is all about gender. Is it all about gender and race? And frankly, I don't think it is. It's more than gender and race here. I'm not poo-pooing that, but it's more than gender and race. That's my read. What's your read, Dee Dee?
Well, I'm very interested in your read, and I should note that Kamala Harris has a right to complain that they didn't put her up against Dan Quayle. Maybe she'd have done better against Dan.
I
don't know, but to be 31 down against Dick Cheney, that's pretty bad. I mean, look, let's go there for a second.
Sure.
When Kamala Harris was nominated as vice president, it was a huge moment for the black community and for the Indian American community. It's the first woman vice president to actually be elected. That was a huge moment. And in a certain way, Biden then dug a hole under her. He gave her a lot of jobs that were unsolvable, and he said, I'm giving this to Kamala Harris to do. So let's be fair and say she hasn't had an easy road. On the other hand, the uneasy road that she's had, she's come down very badly.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, and this is what I mean by going there, if Biden is not willing to move from the top of the ticket, might it help him to change the person under him? If there was somebody who didn't have her negative baggage, who didn't have her negative numbers, people could say, well, Biden we're not thrilled about, but this person, if they become president, that would be pretty good. Maybe that would help. Maybe that would lift him so he wouldn't be behind.
Let me cut in right quick. You went there, and I want to keep going there because that is the penultimate question: whether or not the Biden team will make a decision to take Kamala off the ticket. Now, nobody's saying that publicly, and I don't suspect they will do that. That's my read of it. But that is a major conversation. If people are afraid that you're going to die and they're afraid that she's going to take over, that's the Didi's raised the ultimate. He's raised the question. If you ain't going to abandon the top of the ticket, do you change the bottom of the ticket, the person behind you? Let's talk about it. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of This Light of Ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement, a dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This Light of Ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This Light of Ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org. The City of Los Angeles Civil Rights Department and its Reparations Advisory Commission are calling on you to be a part of something powerful. Join the Black Experience Study to share your experiences with the City of Los Angeles. We want to hear your stories. To join the study, join a focus group, or schedule an interview with us, visit www.blackexperiencela.com by December 31st. For more information, call 213-978-1845 or visit www.laisforeveryone.com.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
All right, Didi Gutton Plan, let's keep going there. During that break, I was in conversation with my colleagues here at the studio, so everybody now is up in orange about this conversation. So let's keep going. So you went there, you got me in trouble, so I'm going to keep going with you. So that is the question. If you're not going to abandon, as Joe Biden, if you ain't going to abandon being at the top of the ticket, might you consider changing number 2? Now, we were just laughing here again in studio that we were talking earlier on our program about Biden, his slippage with black voters. If they were bold enough to replace Kamala, you're going to lose some more black people. And so you might not want to do that. But my question is whether or not you think there are even conversations about that. Are they having conversations about it?
I think they should be having conversations about it. I mean, these numbers show that as bad as Joe Biden is doing, she is a drag on the ticket. And, if you're being cold-blooded about it, that suggests you should consider a change. Mm-hmm. Now, look, you're in California, I'm in New York, so you know Kamala Harris's record better than I will or do, and you know what she what she brought to the ticket when she came on.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it should be stated, particularly on this program, that black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party. So if you do something that is perceived as dissing black women, you are committing suicide as a Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
So, these conversations, if they're happening, have to be careful, and they have to be respectful, and they have to consider hugely the impact on that particular demographic, which is, as I said, the backbone of the Democratic Party. But, if we're talking about former attorney generals, we have an attorney general here in New York, Letitia James, who's having great success in prosecuting the Trump organization in court, even as we speak.
Yep.
I think in other words, I think Kamala Harris could be replaced in a way that would minimize the damage.
Right.
But I don't know whether the Biden administration people are thinking in that way. I mean, I don't have access to their inner councils.
Yeah.
I just think that they should be having this conversation. You said you got into trouble. Why did you get into trouble? People think we shouldn't even talk about it?
No. I was being somewhat tongue in cheek, but just the specter, even raising the specter of her coming off the ticket offends certain people or troubles certain people. And so that's what I meant by trouble. I ain't scared to talk about it, obviously, because we're talking about it. But just raising the specter sometimes gets people, gets their ire. I hadn't thought about Letitia James, but you're right. There is a way that he could switch out one black woman for another, and that might get him in a little less hot water. But here's the ultimate question right quick. If they would decide to make that move to take Kamala off the ticket, the question for black voters then is, do you like Kamala more than you hate Donald Trump? Because if Trump is still the other guy on the other side, you still got a decision to make. Do you love Kamala that much more than you hate Donald Trump? Either way, if he's the nominee for the other side, if Kamala's there or not, you got a tough decision to make. Our remaining moments with the Didi Gutton plan when we come forward. He just spent some time with the Cuban president, and I want to talk about that in our remaining moments. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. Benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. Pick up for 40 days of consistency. On low Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Dee Guttenplan, who's editor of The Nation magazine, who spent some time recently, Dee did with our friend, his colleague, Katrina Vanden Heuvel. I love Katrina. He and Katrina spent some time with the Cuban president in his first ever U.S. interview with a U.S. outlet. A lot to talk about in that conversation. The U.S. blockade, Cuban socialism, and all the difficulties, economic and otherwise, facing this island nation. Dee, I've been to Cuba a few times, had the honor earlier in my career of spending a night with Fidel Castro in conversation.
Wow.
As you knew, this guy was nocturnal, and I was up literally all night one night talking to Castro, and then we got into a fight at the end, which is a whole other story. We had a big argument, but I survived it. So I've been to Cuba a few times, love the island nation, but I have not met this new president, so tell me about your conversation.
Well, Diaz-Canel is no Castro in the sense that you ask him a question and he talks for 20 minutes, but 20 minutes isn't 3 hours.
Right.
So it meant that we were able to get a few questions in, and he's very articulate. He's very smart. He's very interesting. One of the things that struck me as interesting is I said to him I'd gone to a concert the night before of the Afro Latin Jazz Orchestra, and a lot of the people in that orchestra are of Cuban origin. And he said, yeah, he always makes an effort to meet with the sort of Cuban community in the U.S. when he's here. And I thought that's interesting because, you know, the attitude used to be if you left, we disown you, we turn our backs on you. And,
right.
And so there's a kind of change in attitude, which I thought was interesting. You know, the blockade continues to be an embarrassment to the United States and a terrible burden on the Cuban people. We've got our feet, and I say we, most of us, at least, I assume in your audience and in my readership, unwillingly, on the necks of the Cuban people. And, you know, the nation has been advocating for taking our feet off their necks for 50 years now, more than 50 years, 60 years since the blockade started. I was in Cuba in November of last year, and it was my first visit to the island, but I fell in love with the place and with the culture, which I had some experience of because I lived for a while in South Florida.
Right.
And I just think it's amazing. You know, the potential is amazing. It was so interesting in the Obama years when he was really trying to end the blockade.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a kind of flourishing of traffic and trade and tourism and a cultural exchange, and all of that was shut down by Trump. And then Biden really has been very cowardly in terms of moving towards reopening. You know, the one silver lining in Senator Menendez's troubles is he's been a big block to lifting the blockade and improving relations, and maybe he'll be preoccupied by staying out of jail, and that will allow some progress.
No, I'm glad you went. I'm glad you like the country. Quincy Jones, my friend, the impresario, says all the time, when you travel around the world, do three things wherever you go. Learn a few words in their language, eat their food, and listen to their music. And you cannot get enough good music in Cuba. It's everywhere. Good music everywhere, good food everywhere. There are good people. When I went to interview Castro, I also literally had an opportunity to run into and spend some time with Assata Shakur. So it was one of those trips I'll never forget, going to Cuba. But I'm glad to know that you and Katrina were there, and I enjoyed reading the piece about your conversation with the Cuban president. Dee, that's it for now. We'll do it again somewhere down the road. Thanks for your time, sir. All the best to you.
Always a pleasure to talk to you, Tavis.
The delight is always mine. Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network